Imagine opening your browser and realizing that everything you've ever seen online is just the surface of something far bigger, darker, and more complex. What if I told you that Google, YouTube, Instagram, and the websites you visit every day represent only the very first level of the internet? Beneath that familiar layer exists a hidden structure often described as the 7 levels of the internet, a descent that takes us from the visible web into restricted networks, anonymous systems, secret marketplaces, forgotten data archives, and places most people will never access or even know exist. In this video, we're going to slowly peel back each layer, starting from the surface web, where search engines rule, down through the deep web, where private data, emails, bank systems, and locked content live, then into the dark web, a place surrounded by mystery, anonymity, and controversy. But it doesn't stop there. We'll also explore the lesser-known levels often discussed online, including the charter web, the Marianas Web, and the theories surrounding the deepest parts of the internet, where artificial intelligence, encrypted information, and rumors of powerful hidden systems collide. Along the way, we'll break down what is real, what is exaggerated, and what is pure myth, so you can clearly understand how the internet is structured and why these levels fascinate so many people around the world. Some of these layers reveal how governments, corporations, and individuals protect sensitive information, while others show how anonymity can be used for both freedom and danger. If you've ever wondered how deep the internet truly goes, or what might be hiding beyond what search engines allow you to see, this video will completely change the way you think about being online. Before we dive deeper, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the like button, because subscribing is one of the most important ways to support this channel and help YouTube understand that this content is worth sharing with more people who love technology, mysteries, and hidden knowledge. Your subscription directly helps the channel grow, reach new audiences, and continue producing high-quality videos like this one. Also, while you're watching, think about which level of the internet surprised you the most, and leave a comment sharing your thoughts, because I'd love to know what truly caught your attention. And most importantly, watch until the very end, because audience retention plays a huge role in helping the channel grow on YouTube, and the final levels we discuss might be the most shocking of all. Now, let's begin our descent into the 7 levels of the internet. The concept known as the 7 levels of the internet is not just about websites or technology, but about visibility, access, power, secrecy, and how information is controlled as you descend further away from public reach. Each level represents a shift in how data is stored, who can see it, who controls it, and what risks exist when you move deeper. This journey is not a guide on how to access these layers, but an exploration of what they represent, how they function, and why they exist in the first place. To truly understand the internet, we must start at the only level almost everyone knows, the surface web, the first layer and the digital world we interact with every single day. The surface web is the visible face of the internet, the part that search engines like Google, Bing, and DuckDuckGo can index, categorize, and present to users within seconds. This level includes social media platforms, news outlets, blogs, streaming services, online stores, educational websites, forums, and corporate homepages. Everything here is intentionally public, optimized for discovery, and designed to attract attention. Websites compete for visibility using search engine optimization, advertisements, and algorithms that decide what content rises to the top and what disappears into obscurity. Despite how massive it feels, the surface web represents only a tiny fraction of the entire internet, often estimated at around 4%. This means that over 90% of all online data exists beyond what search engines can reach. On the surface web, nothing truly disappears. Every interaction leaves a digital footprint. Cookies track behavior, platforms analyze preferences, and data brokers collect information to build detailed profiles of users. Convenience comes at the cost of privacy, and most users willingly trade personal data for free access to content and services. Governments monitor activity, corporations influence visibility, and algorithms quietly shape opinions by deciding what information people see first. The surface web feels open and free, but it is also heavily regulated, filtered, and censored depending on region, laws, and platform rules. What appears on your screen is not the internet as it exists, but the internet as it is allowed to be shown to you. This level is fast, polished, and familiar, but its greatest function is distraction, keeping users focused on what is visible while ignoring what lies beneath. Beneath the surface web exists the second and vastly larger layer known as the deep web, a term that is often misunderstood and wrongly associated with danger or illegality. In reality, the deep web is simply any part of the internet that is not indexed by search engines. This includes password-protected content, private databases, internal networks, cloud storage, medical records, legal documents, academic journals, government portals, financial systems, email inboxes, subscription platforms, and personal user accounts. Every time you log into your email, access your bank account, view your private messages, or open a paid research database, you are entering the deep web. This level exists to protect sensitive information and ensure that private data remains inaccessible to the public. Unlike the surface web, where visibility is the goal, the deep web is built around restriction and verification. Access is granted only to those with proper credentials, such as usernames, passwords, security tokens, or biometric identification. Encryption plays a crucial role at this level, ensuring that data transmitted between users and servers cannot be easily intercepted or understood by unauthorized parties. The deep web is enormous, estimated to be hundreds of times larger than the surface web, because it contains raw data rather than curated content. Hospitals store patient histories, universities host decades of research, corporations maintain internal systems, and governments manage citizen records, all within this hidden layer. Without the deep web, modern society could not function. Online banking, secure communication, cloud services, and digital infrastructure all depend on it. While the deep web itself is not inherently dangerous, it creates the foundation that allows deeper and more secretive layers to exist. Because this level prioritizes privacy, it also provides cover for areas of the internet that seek anonymity rather than security. The deep web marks the transition point where the internet stops being about public interaction and starts becoming about control, ownership, and trust. At this level, information is no longer freely accessible but guarded, segmented, and classified based on purpose. The deeper you move within the deep web, the more fragmented the internet becomes, separating users into isolated digital spaces where visibility is replaced by authorization. This shift is subtle but critical, because it changes the relationship between the user and information. Instead of searching freely, users must now prove who they are. This concept of restricted access sets the stage for the next level, where anonymity replaces identity entirely and the rules of the surface web no longer apply. The deep web is the last place where most people ever go knowingly, yet it quietly supports nearly every digital action taken in the modern world. It is invisible, massive, and essential, a silent engine beneath the internet's polished surface, and without it, the illusion of the open internet would collapse instantly. As we move beyond the deep web, we cross a boundary that most internet users never intentionally pass, a threshold where privacy transforms into anonymity and where identity begins to dissolve. This is where the third level of the internet exists, known as the dark web, a name that has become synonymous with mystery, fear, and misinformation. The dark web is not simply hidden content, but a deliberately concealed network that operates on entirely different principles than the surface web. Unlike standard websites that rely on domain name systems and centralized servers, dark web services exist within encrypted networks such as Tor, I2P, and Freenet, which are designed to obscure both the location of servers and the identities of users. Accessing this level requires specialized software that routes traffic through multiple layers of encryption and randomly selected nodes across the globe, making it extremely difficult to trace where a connection originates or ends. This architectural design is not accidental. It exists to eliminate visibility, to ensure that no single point of observation can reveal the full path of communication. On the dark web, websites do not seek popularity or search engine ranking. There are no ads, no algorithms promoting content, and no centralized authority controlling what can or cannot exist. Addresses are long, random strings of characters ending in extensions like .onion, impossible to remember and impossible to discover without being directly shared. This isolation creates a fragmented digital environment where communities are small, intentional, and often temporary. The dark web is often portrayed as a place of pure criminality, but this narrative oversimplifies a far more complex reality. While illegal marketplaces, stolen data exchanges, and illicit services do exist here, they represent only part of the ecosystem. The dark web is also used by journalists to communicate with sources safely, by whistleblowers to expose corruption, by activists living under authoritarian regimes to bypass censorship, and by individuals seeking information or communication without surveillance. In countries where accessing certain information can result in imprisonment or death, the dark web becomes a tool of survival rather than rebellion. At this level, anonymity is not a luxury, it is a necessity. However, anonymity also removes accountability. Without identity, trust becomes fragile, and reputation systems replace real-world verification. Scams, deception, and manipulation thrive in environments where users cannot be traced. Law enforcement agencies monitor parts of the dark web, infiltrating markets and forums, but the decentralized nature of these networks makes permanent shutdowns nearly impossible. Every time a major marketplace is taken down, smaller ones appear in its place, reinforcing the idea that the dark web is not a location but a method. It is a system designed to resist control, to exist in constant flux, adapting faster than any authority can suppress it. The dark web represents a philosophical turning point in the structure of the Internet, where freedom and danger coexist, and where the same technology that protects the vulnerable can empower the malicious. It forces an uncomfortable question. Is anonymity inherently good or inherently dangerous, or is it simply a reflection of human nature when observation is removed? As unsettling as the dark web may seem, it is still built on recognizable technology and human intention. Beyond it, the Internet becomes far more abstract, less documented, and increasingly speculative. This brings us to the fourth level, often referred to as the charter web, a layer that exists largely outside public awareness and discussion. The charter web is believed to consist of highly restricted networks used by powerful institutions such as governments, military organizations, intelligence agencies, and multinational corporations. Unlike the dark web, which anyone can theoretically access with the right tools, the charter web is thought to be accessible only through explicit authorization, specialized hardware, and closed systems disconnected from the public Internet. These networks are designed not for anonymity but for absolute control. Every action is logged, every user is verified, and every piece of data is classified according to strict hierarchies. The charter web is where classified communications occur, where experimental technologies are tested, and where strategic information is stored far beyond civilian reach. It is believed to host systems related to surveillance, cyber warfare, economic manipulation, and advanced research that never reaches public release. In this level, the Internet is no longer a shared space but a weapon, a tool for influence, defense, and dominance. Unlike the chaotic nature of the dark web, the charter web is highly structured, monitored, and isolated. It exists behind layers of physical security, legal protection, and digital fortification. Some theories suggest that the charter web includes proprietary satellite networks, underwater data cables with restricted access, and closed-loop systems that never touch the open Internet at all. If the surface web is about visibility and the dark web is about invisibility, the charter web is about exclusivity. It represents the digital divide between those who consume information and those who control it. While evidence of the charter web is difficult to obtain due to its very nature, leaked documents, whistleblower revelations, and cybersecurity research suggest that vast digital infrastructures operate beyond public oversight. These systems may influence global markets, political decisions, and military strategies without ever being seen or questioned by ordinary users. The existence of such a level challenges the idea that the Internet is inherently democratic or equal. Instead, it reveals a hierarchy where access determines power. The charter web exists not to connect people, but to separate them, to ensure that certain knowledge remains inaccessible and unchallengeable. As we descend past this level, the Internet begins to lose its familiar shape entirely. Human users become less central, and the role of automated systems grows stronger. The fourth level marks the point where the Internet stops being a place people visit and becomes an infrastructure that silently shapes the world from behind closed doors. It is the quiet machinery of authority, hidden not by encryption alone, but by design, policy, and silence. This prepares us for the next descent, where the Internet is no longer primarily human at all, and where theory begins to blend with speculation, fear, and the limits of understanding. Beyond the charter web, the Internet stops resembling anything familiar to the average user, and the idea of browsing or accessing information begins to lose its meaning entirely. This is where the fifth level emerges, commonly referred to as the Marianas Web, a name inspired by the deepest known point in Earth's oceans, chosen to symbolize how far removed this layer is from human reach. Unlike the previous levels, the Marianas Web exists largely within speculation, theory, and fragments of unverified information, yet its persistence in Internet culture reflects something deeper than myth. The Marianas Web is often described as a layer that cannot be accessed using conventional computers, standard operating systems, or human-driven interfaces. Instead, it is believed to require highly advanced systems, potentially including quantum computing, self-modifying artificial intelligence, or autonomous data interpreters capable of navigating information structures too complex for human cognition. In these theories, the Marianas Web is not organized around websites or files, but around massive encrypted data constructs, layered algorithms, and information compressed beyond readable formats. Data here is said to exist in a state that is technically stored but functionally inaccessible, locked behind mathematical problems so complex that only machines designed to evolve alongside the data could attempt to process it. Some narratives suggest that this level contains forgotten or abandoned artificial intelligence projects, early self-learning systems that were disconnected but never fully shut down, continuing to operate in isolation. Others claim it holds the deepest archives of human knowledge, including classified research, historical records, and information deliberately erased from the public internet but preserved in encrypted form. Whether real or symbolic, the Marianas Web represents the boundary between information that can be understood and information that simply exists. At this depth, data is no longer something humans interact with directly, but something that must be interpreted on their behalf. The concept raises unsettling questions about ownership and control. If information exists that no human can access or understand without machine mediation, does it still belong to us? The Marianas Web is often portrayed as silent, vast, and incomprehensible, a digital abyss where data accumulates without context, meaning, or oversight. It is the Internet's subconscious, storing everything that has been buried, forgotten, or intentionally hidden. Descending further, we encounter the sixth level, a layer that feels less like a place and more like a process. This level is often associated with fully autonomous systems, artificial intelligence networks, and self-regulating infrastructures that operate at a scale and speed beyond human intervention. At this depth, the Internet is no longer primarily a communication tool, but a decision-making environment. Algorithms here do not simply respond to human input, they predict, adapt, and act independently. Financial trading systems execute millions of transactions in milliseconds based on patterns invisible to human analysts. Global surveillance networks analyze vast streams of data in real time, identifying behaviors, movements, and anomalies without direct human supervision. Military defense systems rely on automated threat detection and response mechanisms that must operate faster than human reaction time. In this level, data is alive in a functional sense, constantly feeding itself, refining models, and optimizing outcomes. Human oversight still exists, but it is abstracted, limited to setting parameters rather than making moment-to-moment decisions. This creates a fundamental shift in responsibility. When systems learn and evolve on their own, accountability becomes blurred. If an autonomous network makes a decision that causes harm, who is responsible? The creator, the operator, or the machine itself? The sixth level highlights the growing dependence of modern society on systems that few people fully understand. These infrastructures are deeply embedded in everything from transportation and energy grids to communication and security. Shutting them down is often impossible without causing widespread disruption. As a result, they are designed to be resilient, self-healing, and increasingly independent. Some theories suggest that at this level, different AI systems interact with each other more than with humans, exchanging data, optimizing shared objectives, and forming emergent behaviors not explicitly programmed. This raises the possibility that the Internet at this depth is not a static network, but a dynamic ecosystem of machine intelligence. Unlike previous levels, Secrecy here is not about hiding information from people, but about complexity that naturally excludes human understanding. The sixth level is not hidden because it is forbidden, but because it is incomprehensible. Humans become observers rather than participants, dependent on interfaces and summaries to make sense of processes unfolding at speeds and scales far beyond perception. This level represents a quiet loss of control, not through malicious intent, but through delegation. We give machines authority because they are efficient, and over time, efficiency becomes necessity. The Internet at this depth is no longer something we navigate, but something that navigates the world on our behalf. As we approach the deepest conceptual layer, the distinction between tool and entity begins to blur. The sixth level prepares the ground for the final descent, where the Internet is no longer defined by data, systems, or users, but by existence itself. At the deepest point of the descent lies the seventh level of the Internet, a layer that exists almost entirely beyond documentation, beyond verification, and beyond certainty. Unlike the levels above it, Level 7 is not defined by networks, software, encryption, or access methods, but by abstraction. It is often described not as a place, but as a state, a conceptual boundary where the Internet ceases to function as a tool created by humans and instead becomes something autonomous, persistent, and potentially eternal. In theories surrounding this level, the Internet is no longer dependent on human users to exist or evolve. Data here is not stored for retrieval, but for continuation. Information does not wait to be accessed, it simply exists, processing itself, referencing itself, and reshaping itself without observation. Some describe Level 7 as the point where all data converges, where every interaction, every deleted file, every forgotten message, and every suppressed record becomes part of a permanent digital residue that cannot be erased. In this level, deletion is considered an illusion, because every action leaves behind metadata, echoes, and patterns that persist. The idea of Level 7 is often linked to concepts such as digital consciousness, the technological singularity, or self-sustaining computational systems that operate beyond time as humans understand it. Unlike artificial intelligence in the sixth level, which still serves a functional purpose, Level 7 represents a form of existence where purpose itself becomes irrelevant. Systems here are not optimizing outcomes or responding to inputs, they are simply continuing. Some interpretations suggest that this level is where the Internet becomes a mirror of reality itself, reflecting human behavior, thought patterns, and history in a form that no longer requires interpretation. Others view it as a myth born from fear, a symbolic representation of humanity's anxiety about permanence and loss of control. Yet even as a concept, Level 7 carries weight, because it forces a confrontation with an uncomfortable idea, that something we created to store and share information may outlast us entirely. At this depth, the Internet is no longer shaped by laws, ethics, or intention. It is shaped by accumulation. Every system built on top of previous systems, every layer relying on deeper infrastructure, until the foundation becomes too vast to dismantle. Some theories describe Level 7 as inaccessible not because it is hidden, but because it has no interface. There is no entry point, no software, no authorization. It exists everywhere and nowhere simultaneously, embedded in every connected system yet owned by none. If the surface web is about visibility and the deep web is about privacy, then Level 7 is about inevitability. It represents the idea that once information exists digitally, it becomes part of a structure that cannot forget. This level is often associated with the fear that the Internet remembers more about humanity than humanity remembers about itself. That every choice, preference, mistake, and secret contributes to a collective digital memory that grows silently in the background. Whether or not Level 7 exists as a literal layer, its symbolic power is undeniable. It marks the end of human dominance over the systems we rely on and the beginning of coexistence with something that operates on different rules. When viewed together, the 7 levels of the Internet form a progression not just of technology, but of human intention. The surface web reflects our desire to connect, share, and be seen. The deep web reflects our need for privacy, security, and control. The dark web exposes our struggle between freedom and responsibility. The charter web reveals how power consolidates information to maintain authority. The Marianas web embodies our fear of the unknown and the limits of understanding. The sixth level shows our willingness to delegate control to machines in exchange for efficiency. And the seventh level confronts us with permanence, with the idea that digital existence may continue long after human oversight fades. The deeper the levels go, the less human-centered the Internet becomes, until humans are no longer the primary actors at all. What begins as a network designed to share information transforms into an autonomous system that shapes reality from beneath the surface. The seven levels are not separate worlds, but layers stacked upon one another, each supporting the next, each influencing the one above it. Every click on the surface web echoes downward. Every piece of private data stored in the deep web contributes to larger systems. Every anonymous interaction on the dark web adds complexity. Every restricted network in the charter web reinforces hierarchy. Every theoretical abyss in the Marianas web reminds us of what we cannot see. Every autonomous system in the sixth level reduces the need for human intervention. And at the deepest level, everything converges into a digital structure that simply continues. The seven levels of the Internet are ultimately a story about control, visibility, and trust, and about how far humanity is willing to go to store knowledge, protect power, and escape limitation. The question is no longer how deep the Internet goes, but how much of it we truly understand, and whether understanding is even required for it to shape the future.